Welcome back to the Business Roundtable Podcast. I'm your host, David Carr, founder of Steward Your Business, where we help leaders build healthier businesses through stronger communication, leadership alignment, and intentional organizational growth. And today's conversation is going to be one that maybe challenges you about how you think about growth. Because oftentimes when revenue slows down, most companies immediately assume hey, we got to get more leads. We got to work on our marketing, more activity, more sales pressure. I see this in teams, and it doesn't always solve the problem. In fact, maybe that even isn't the issue, isn't activity, but it's really more about alignment. And that's where I'm excited to have my brand new guest to the podcast, Ellen Smolko, founder of Foresight Performance and creator of this revenue alignment model that I think we're excited to unpack with you all today. Ellen has worked with founder-led businesses and really, I like the term that Ellen, I don't know if you coined this, Ellen, but revenue friction. We're going to break this down about the misalignments that you may be finding in your company and all of that with it. So, Ellen, I'm just excited to have you here on the podcast to share your insights and background. You've just wowed me in our pre-podcast calls, and I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm delighted to be here, and I really am looking forward to helping your audience lead better.
Absolutely. No, I mean, here's the thing I've learned, Ellen, and why I love having guests like you on the podcast is that sometimes we don't have the awareness or the understanding, and it's for various reasons. And to have somebody like yourself come in and diagnose it, I deal with people, but you're looking at the revenue of the company. And sometimes, you think I should figure this out. I should just know this, but there's various reasons why you don't, and why having somebody like yourself come in and really help businesses stop being, reactive, but really start building systems and scale with intention. And it's okay. I mean, I think the first thing is understanding you have a problem and then figuring out how to get help. And I think that one of the problems we see, most businesses at some point have revenue friction. They're not getting the revenue in that they once had. Or there's a breakdown. So can you just break that? I mean, literally, I want you to break that down. But what do you mean when you say revenue friction, and what is that pointing to in the organization, the company?
Okay, when I'm talking about revenue friction, it's anything that slows or stalls the revenue growth of the company. It could be something internally, or it could be something externally. And my focus is, of course, on the market piece. But it could also exist at the intersection of your team and the market. So anything that's going to cause you to lose steam, the way it shows up is you're chugging along, you've got this nice growth curve that you're looking at, and all of a sudden you hit a plateau, or worse yet, you're looking at peaks and valleys with your revenue. And a lot of people have come to believe that peaks and valleys is natural, normal, and should be expected. It's none of those things.
Well, how do founders or business leaders, owners, how do they misdiagnose this problem? Just to your point. Okay, well, this should just be how they're misdiagnosing it. They're not seeing it. How have you seen that show up, Ellen?
I've seen them assume that when revenue declines or plateaus, their first instinct is that they don't have enough leads. So they'll look at their pipeline. They may see a healthy pipeline, and the next step is they're not closing well enough, and they'll look at their sales team. And if the sales team looks like they're good and the pipeline looks like it's good, then the very next thing they turn to is, we need a new website. We need to up the budget on pay-per-click, things that are Band-Aids. It's their first instinct is to do something, not to diagnose. And when I come in and work with folks, just as when you work with them, you start by diagnosing.
Yes, that's so important. I'm so glad you said that. We've had a number of different folks on the podcast that are AI consultants or specialists. And one of the things they tell me, Ellen, to your point, is like, we're not going to bring in any AI tool or anything into your organization until we diagnose where you're at, what problem you're trying to solve, where you're trying to go here. But why is it the business owners and leaders sometimes are just going they're just going too fast, right? And they're like, what is that tendency there? I've noticed
some of it is panic. Okay. When you're experiencing steady growth and you don't understand how markets could shift out from under you because of your growth. Okay.
Right.
Sometimes the market outgrows you, but sometimes you outgrow the market. Right. And when you experience you're sailing along and things are great, and then all of a sudden, you sort of turn your attention away. It really doesn't happen as quickly as people think it happens. It starts to show up slowly. There are cracks between things. They'll see, for example, companies may start to get more pushback on pricing. Okay. They may get more pushback on the offering that is being presented. No, that's not quite right for us. Or they may get pushback even on the size of the company. We've grown. You're no longer big enough to service us. And that may or may not be true.
Right.
Okay? But the first signs are super subtle. And it may be one or two clients that are larger that leave. Or it might be that, you have a sudden plateau due to, could even be an economic thing.
Right.
So they're not tuned into the subtle things because they're busy.
Yes, that totally makes sense.
They're flipping hats. They're busy. And something changes and they see that something's changed. And the first reaction is to say to the sales team, we need to improve our numbers. Okay?
Yeah. Right.
Which then puts the sales team into putting their back into it and really, giving it a good run.
All. Yeah.
And then when that's not good enough, the sales team starts to go, well, we're doing everything we can. It's marketing's problem.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So now you're distracted from diagnosing the issue because you initially thought it was your sales team. So you made a diagnosis on your own without realizing it. And then the sales team said, not us, it's marketing. So now you're stuck in a non-objective diagnostic cycle. Okay, where you're going back and forth and nothing's objective and nothing's based and grounded in the market data. Let me give you a quick example, if I may.
Yeah.
I had a client who was losing sales and they got a lot of pushback on the pricing. Okay. And it was weird because they didn't think that they should be getting pushback on the pricing. They had their pricing set very reasonably. Okay. And they thought, well, it's not where we're at. It's what their budget is, maybe. They didn't dive in. The client actually meant, based on your pricing, we don't think you're doing all the things we need you to do. Therefore, you may not be the right size company for us anymore. They were looking for a higher price because it incorporated
you can't be doing
more
all this for this price. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, and this is like a really bad problem to have me come in and say, guess what, guys, we have to increase our price.
Right.
But this is exactly what had happened. And that's because when they first started working with the base clients, the anchor clients, the anchor clients were smaller and didn't understand all of the nuances that might be going into the work. Now, in fairness, my client was doing all that work. They just weren't being adequately compensated. So now the client gets bigger. They're attracting other consultants who come in and say, we can do it better for you. Here's the list of things we're going to do. And the client company's looking at the list and saying, I don't know if this company that I'm working with does any of this. And if all this rolls up to this big price tag, then I don't think they're doing all of this. So what came across was not you're incompetent or I'm questioning your competence.
Right.
What came across is we have an issue with your pricing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
nobody asked, what's that issue?
Wow. Wow. Well, and what you were saying earlier about blaming each other, that's one thing I often see at Steward Your Business is this internal communication and leadership friction. Then it becomes operational friction. And then, like you said, like this eventually revenue friction. So, I think many founders mistake movement
Yes.
for progress. We're moving, we're doing, but we're not actually
We've
progressing,
changed
right?
something. We've changed something, so we should be good.
Right. Right. So what I appreciate about the way you approach things and the framework is that it really connects directly to organizational health, leadership alignment, and what's a huge part of what we do. And so talk more about, okay, we've designated this problem, you've diagnosed it, but how do we get that alignment, that revenue alignment, so that now we can get this fixed, so we're not bickering at each other or going and misunderstanding. Can you break that down for like how you get them in alignment? I think of it like a chiropractor. I'm out of whack. I need to get put back into order here. And I loved how when you talked to me about this, it just jumped out at me and it's like, oh man, it's not complex, but it's like, boom, just having somebody walk you through this.
Now, one of the first things I do, David, and why I'm glad to have an alliance with you is one of the first things I do when I hear marketing and sales pointing at each other and saying, not us, it's them.
Yes.
Okay. The first question I ask of the leaders is, how often does this happen that they're pointing at each other, and what happens to them if they don't hit their numbers? So I'm looking to see, is there a reason they might be pointing at each other to deflect blame or fault finding? If that's not my job, right? That's you.
Right.
That's you. So if I uncover something that is a leadership skill, like you're not leading the way your team needs to be led, I'm going to immediately bring in someone like you, David, to look at the leadership, because then I can turn my attention to validating the pieces of the market. So does your ideal client profile definition still match who really wants to be working with you?
Right.
Have you changed the client profile? Did you ever validate? A lot of companies, when they start out, don't validate their ICP against market data. And they get some anchor clients, and that's great. But they get anchor clients for reasons other than what's defined in the ICP.
Yeah.
And a lot of times this will show up as, I get to a certain level of growth and then boom, I'm at a plateau and nothing I do gets me through it. Right? So the first thing I look at is, who is in the market? Has it shifted? Has your competitive landscape changed? Is there somebody new on the block who's got this great pitch that AI wrote for them, I'm sure?
Yeah.
But they've got this great pitch and everything seems so wonderful. And you're being displaced by a competitor you didn't even know exists. Or are you displacing yourself because the competitors have advanced their pricing faster than you? Or your competitors have advanced their product development, their offerings. They've enriched them. They added value to their offerings at every single level. And you've just been assuming that what you offered was good enough.
Yeah.
Okay. These are all places that I'm looking, and I'm looking at what the company has relative to the market. Once I pin that down, then we go to work where David comes back into the picture, even if you were not needed initially, because while I'm aligning the company's revenue generation system, which is what I create, against the market, I need the leadership to be aligning the people to the new system. Or you get salesmen, for example, one thing that I try to put an end to is the need to discount to close a sale.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely. Yeah.
I can work on the pricing so that you don't need to do that, okay? And
Yeah.
maybe your pricing wasn't too high to begin with. It could have just been you weren't talking to the right people, right?
Yeah.
But if I align you to the market and your sales team is stuck in the habit of discounting to close, you're still not going to achieve the revenue you're capable of. And again, not my job.
Yeah.
Not
Right?
my job. That's
Right.
David's job. That's a job for David to help the leaders understand. Now, what we've discovered about your market is, that it's changed a little bit. So your people need to make a change. I'm going to give you a silly example. I have an accounting firm that's a client of mine, a longstanding client. When we started working together, I felt compelled to wear a business suit to their office because everyone in the office was in a business suit and the men looked so uncomfortable with those ties on. But their clients expected that. Fast forward to post-COVID, and they're still showing up at the client sites in suits, professional attire, and increasingly seeing the clients are less and less formal in their attire. And they started losing clients because the clients thought my prices are probably going to go up because these guys are still wearing these expensive suits. Okay. So
Yep.
and it's not even a conscious thing. It's a
Yeah.
subconscious thing. So basically, I went back after actually speaking to some of the clients and they said, we just wish they weren't so uptight. And I said, what do you mean by that? What do you mean you don't want your finance advisors to be uptight about your finances?
Right.
They said, no. We wish they'd be a little more relaxed. Show up in, business casual, take your tie off. Let's get down to,
Feel more
rolling our
relatable to
sleeves
them.
up.
Yeah. Feel more relatable to them, right? To the client.
Yeah,
They've pivoted or they've shifted in the way that they're showing up. So you got to meet them where they're at, right?
exactly. So now I have to turn to the leaders and tell them, hey, you guys got to lose the suits. And I trust me, I was not the one that wanted to work with the leadership. I worked with the managing partner and explained what I had seen and then said, you know what, it's on you now. It's on you to get them to lose
Absolutely.
the tie, lose the jacket at times, be in shirt sleeves, just relax a little bit. And sure enough, their client retention rate settled back in. And they reconnected with some of the clients that they had lost before I came on board who signed back up. And P.S., they lost the suits and raised their prices.
There you go. That's amazing,
So,
Ellen. So you diagnosed the issue. You came in there and said, hey, make this adjustment. And
yep.
boom, there you go.
But again, when it came time for the leaders to explain to their people, and this was a silly example because the people were really happy to lose the suits.
They're like, all right, thank you, Ellen. All right.
I mean, if it were, it doesn't matter how easy or how difficult it is. If there's any friction between the leadership and the team, there's friction in all types of business. So revenue friction, yes, it's a term I coined because it's the friction, the heat that actually slows you down doesn't speed you up, right?
Right. Yeah.
If it's friction between the leadership and the team, not my job.
Yeah.
Thank
Right.
God it's not my job.
Yeah. Right. Well, so tell me, so when we, one of the things I liked how, and this is on your website as well, but in this, you broke down a number of core areas of that we should be looking at in the company. So, and maybe folks will know this, but I think it's still worthwhile to break it down, Ellen, of like why slow down and how evaluate these different areas so that way you can diagnose, to your point, that's where you're coming in. But like,
right?
talk about what companies should, when you work with companies, what are those areas that you're looking at, Ellen, to get that alignment?
So I use a revenue alignment framework.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the way the framework functions, it looks at the interplay between your positioning in the market, which
Mm-hmm.
also involves defining your ideal client profile.
Yep.
Okay. And how that positioning and ICP feeds into your offerings.
Mm-hmm.
And then with your offerings, I make sure that, a lot of people don't know how to structure offerings
Yeah.
because it's not their thing,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yeah.
So the way I look at offerings is to productize you. Now, the difference between productization and tiered or bundled services, if you're not really sitting in my chair, they seem like the same thing. They're not. Here's
Mm-hmm.
how to know the difference. When you're dealing with tiers or bundles of services, you have a base, like a floor service.
Mm-hmm.
This is the service in every package you roll out. No difference. So, using the accounting firm, okay, their
Mm-hmm.
base package was that they did bookkeeping. Everything had bookkeeping in it,
Right.
okay? The next package put together bookkeeping with some accounting services.
Mm-hmm.
The next package put the bookkeeping and accounting services together with financial advisory services.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But the base value was still predicated on bookkeeping. Okay.
Yep.
Instead of the focus remaining on bookkeeping, what we did to productize them is we changed the value chain. So now at step one, yes, 100% of the value was coming from bookkeeping.
Mm-hmm.
At step two, your value was coming from a combination of bookkeeping and the accounting services. And it wasn't just, we'll do quarterly reviews of your finances. That was
Mm-hmm.
the tiered. This was, we're going to do reviews of your finances. We're going to make sure that your books are reconciled properly. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
look at the projections for next quarter and the following quarter's revenue to make sure we hit our annual goals. We are going to give you a total financial picture. See how the value of that is different? It's not
Yes.
just, oh,
Yes.
and we stuck something else on, so we're going to incrementally increase the cost.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then at the highest level, it was the advisory, the controller and CFO services that were also, they became the focus of the value. So the
Mm-hmm.
value sat with that top level and pushed down to the work the others on the team were doing.
Mm.
So tiers is kind of like bottom up. Productization is kind of like the highest value down.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting. Would you say, I'm just for our listeners and folks that are maybe new to this, I've heard other models say in that this is like do it yourself model versus a kind of a done for you model. Ellen,
Those,
like how would you
that could
correlate that?
be.
How is that similar? I mean, I'm just trying to understand
Yep.
is like when you talk about some services are like, well, I'll just give you the baseline and you kind of do it yourself, or done with you or done for you. That's one
Yes.
way I've heard it
So let
shared.
me tell you why that would be, what would make that the value-based productization versus just setting something on the basis of price. Because a lot of
Right.
folks say, well, if you do it yourself, I'll reduce the price.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're still not centering the offer on the value. Do it yourself is, it's being done by someone who probably doesn't do this as a primary responsibility.
Right.
They may not have the training to recognize those small cracks that'll open up.
Yep.
Done for you is we're going to bring the value of an experienced team. Okay. But then done for you can have other levels of product. So that, for example, in the world of marketing, I have agencies that work with me, and they do have done do it yourself and done for you. And within the do it yourself, you can add on the tiers.
Got it.
Okay.
Yes.
But also in the done for you, you can add on additional services. But here's the trick. In the done for you, the guy who's doing your pay-per-click advertising management is not the same guy that's doing your website build. That's a website specialist. So we're bringing specialist value at every level of additional service. So it's not just that base value that we stick some things onto.
Yeah, it totally makes sense, Ellen. Coming from an environmental consulting background myself, is you're coming, well, just to what you're saying is we would come in and a client would come to us and say, hey, I need to develop this property. Okay, great. Well, that involves a biological resources survey, that involves a cultural resources survey, that involves project management, GIS. So to your point, these are all different specialists that we're putting on, which is not just tiered. It is actual different service sites. And that's where I feel like, Ellen, your expertise comes in, is like, well, where's the market, and what are the different services that we can bring to the market? And to your point, I had I was with a small company, about 120 people, and I would ask my team regularly, do you understand all the services that we do? Well, we know our service, but we didn't know our other ones, and we didn't know how to cross-sell those. So they were almost siloed. And I think, like, wow, there's a revenue friction right there. Of like, right? Because I'm like, if I'm a biologist, let's use that as an example, and I only do biologists. I'm like, but they're like, well, by the way, we have to deal with Native American tribe. Why am I talking to my archaeologists and my team so they can coordinate with that? It's a missed opportunity, revenue friction. And then the client, to your point that you said, Erlen, might go to another firm that says, oh, well, they do this service. And like, we do this service. Well, I didn't know that. I wasn't even aware of it. Missed opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are certainly some times where I'll run into a client that has, whether intentionally or not, actually productized their business. But here's where the difference for them comes in. It's the next step in the framework, which is your pricing strategy. And pricing strategy isn't just how much we charge. It's value-based pricing, which is how much we charge, in addition to when is it okay to discount? When is it not okay to discount?
Right.
Okay. What happens if we have, for example, I have a client that has an annual service contract. Okay. And if you buy the service contract for 1 year, the price is, for argument's sake, let's say it's $100. If you buy it for 2 years, it's only $190. If you buy it for 3 years. So essentially, there is a slight discount because there is money coming in. But then there's also the added piece of, will we break up our payments? Will we break up that total cost? How do we bill you? How do we invoice you? If we give you multiple invoices, and by the way, you're paying by credit card, who's eating the credit card cost? Where is that price? The cost of your goods sold has to be factored into your pricing strategy.
Yes.
So even when I do, a lot of people say, wait a minute, I thought you were doing value-based pricing. You're talking to me about my costs. I'm like, well, yeah, because I have to know how far not to go down.
Right.
Not that I'm going down to the bottom, but if the lowest level of service doesn't provide the value, and value is in the eyes of the market, it's not in the eyes of the provider, right? So if I think something is worth $1 million, but the market thinks it's worth $1.98, I'm going to have a tough time selling.
Right. Right.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
what I do is I create that lowest level offering so that it covers your cost and gives you a margin. Okay,
Right.
some margin. So you're not at a loss leader, which is what tiered pricing usually is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a loss leader.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is that I set it so that the value is clear and the price, the actual dollars, are low enough that the client sees it as risk free.
Mm.
So I can take a chance if I'm not really sure you can deliver. I can take a chance because the cost is not going to damage my ability to move forward if you can't deliver.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
gives you a shorter close time. So, so this is all what goes into that third bucket, which is the pricing. So I've taken the market, filtered
Mm-hmm.
it through the offerings. Now I'm filtering the market and the offerings through to your pricing.
Yep.
And then the last piece is it has to be put together in a nice package. I don't mean physical package. I mean a story
Mm-hmm.
that goes to the market. Now, people will say, so you write my tagline, my slogan, you'll do this. I could, but that's not really what I deliver. It's called a
Mm-hmm.
go-to-market strategy. And it says, these are the people we need to be talking to. These are the words that you need to use with them.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond these specific words and concepts, have at it. Be creative. That's not my job.
Mm-hmm.
See, I can couch my job by pointing at other people and saying it's David or it's the marketing team or so yeah. So
Right.
that last piece is to make sure that all of the data that I've gathered and all of the structure that I've put into what is a revenue generation machine
Mm-hmm.
gets reflected in how your market hears you.
So important, Ellen.
Yeah.
Ellen, as you said, as I can see how you're building this out, because I think um the pricing was one, as you were talking about, that stood out to me too, because sometimes when I've seen this happen with clients, and I'd love to speak to this a little bit more. So maybe
Yeah.
they've gone through this, they've gone through and they've gotten their offer and they have a pricing. And what I've seen is the market shifts, like, well, you said this earlier, but sometimes they chase the market down or clients, and well, like you said, we'll discount it or we'll adjust it. And I think what you said earlier of, we got to figure out the baseline of where, we don't want to go to break even or losing money, right? And
Right.
it's like sometimes there's this company's like, well, but they're such a big client, or we're hoping we're going to get something else out of it. And again, talk a little bit about that, Ellen, because I think sometimes they go too long
Yes.
of
Yes.
that.
I see all the time. I see people saying, I'm going to offer a free trial or I'm going to offer a free whatever the service is.
Mm-hmm.
And if that free thing takes an hour of time, okay, great. But if it takes 5, 6, 7 hours, you need to be getting paid for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And a lot of people, for example, will put together free webinars.
Right.
Okay. And the webinar may only be 45 minutes to an hour. But
Right.
how long did it take the presenter to put together the webinar, to
Mm-hmm.
advertise the webinar, to get the word
Right.
out about the webinar, and to do the registrations and all of the gyrations that need to go with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't see that as granularly as I do,
Yes.
okay? And
Mm-hmm.
that is a source of revenue leak.
Yes. Revenue. That's a great point. Yes.
Because you're losing money on what essentially is a marketing activity. And
Mm-hmm.
marketing is looked at, the activities we do for marketing it's looked at as a cost center.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Mm-hmm.
do it right, marketing should be a revenue center.
Yes, absolutely.
It
Yes.
should be a revenue center. So if you are treating it as a cost center, then you've got to, you need to realign with what the market is saying. Now,
Mm-hmm.
to the point of there's a great company that we want to go after, or maybe there's an adjacent market. I work with accountants, okay, that are semi-regulated industry. Gee, can I also work my magic with lawyers? Well, okay, so I'm new in the lawyers, in the legal industry. So
Right.
I'm going to discount my price. Well, wait till your accountant client finds one of your legal clients and then turns around and says, hey, look here.
Right.
So there are pricing strategies that people don't hear. They hear about cost plus. They hear this thing called value-based pricing. But beyond that, there are actually methodologies. Cost plus is a methodology, but there are other types of pricing strategy. One of them is called penetration pricing. Okay. That's where you want to go deeply into a market and potentially displace competitors from people that you want to serve. So maybe that big fish client already has somebody that's doing what you're doing. In order to displace them, you may need to go in at a slightly lower margin, but you should not be going in at a loss.
Right.
Yep. So that's penetration pricing. That's what you do to get you in deeply. And then sort of once you're in, you can fan out and open up in that market or that segment of the market.
Right.
Then if you find a market that is either underrepresented, underserved, or what we call a blue ocean, nobody's in it. You've got no competition. Now you have a tough decision. What do you want to do with the market? Because within 6 months of finding a blue ocean, your ocean won't be blue anymore. Others will have found your market. Okay. Because you led them to it.
Yeah, they're like, oh, what's going on here? It's like a fishing spot. Hey, this guy's catching a lot of fish. Let's go over there.
You could use penetration pricing and just go in really deep and then expand out and close out competitors from coming in. Or, okay, you can use an approach like skimming, where you literally know you're only going in to take as much profit as you can in as short a period of time as you can. If you get beyond that, that's great, but you weren't planning on it.
You weren't, yeah.
So you go in with skimming and you charge the highest rate because you can get it. And you don't care if you're displaced from that market because you had that set to generate a finite amount of income for your company. Okay.
Yep.
And if you stay there longer, you stay there longer. And these are the types of discussions I have with my larger clients. Smaller clients don't tend to stray too far. We're just looking at adjacent markets, so they don't need to get into this. But it's always good to know that, a pricing strategy isn't just, how much should we charge? When do we discount? When don't we? It's, are we using penetration pricing? Are we going to hang out here? Are we going to really roll up our sleeves, put on the boxing gloves, and go toe to toe with everybody else that challenges us in this?
Right.
Okay. And there are certainly markets, like, for example, the healthcare space, where competing for healthcare clients is extremely profitable. Government contracting, extremely profitable. Guess what? When you get in the elevator on the way to the healthcare or the government sectors, you're standing like as tight shoulder to shoulder with all of your competitors.
Yep.
Does that mean you don't compete there? No. It means you've got to have a strategy for how to do it, and that includes your pricing.
Yes, absolutely, Ellen. To your point, in my background of 25 plus years of environmental consulting, sometimes my competitors would actually be my collaborators too, depending on the opportunity that we're looking at, right? And who we're targeting, because we couldn't do it on our own. We didn't have the capacity. We didn't have enough people. And quite honestly, there's whole bunch of things we don't have time to get into, whether it's small business set-asides or local emphasis on different things. There's a whole host of things in there, local presence, region, you have people, boots on the ground, all of these things. But I think what I'm hearing loud and clear from you, Ellen, is like having somebody like you come and unpack this with the company.
Yes.
Slow down enough, get somebody that's an outside perspective in coming in and diagnosing this so that you can go through all of those things, because maybe your pricing is good, but your positioning is not right, so that you're not finding the right people or they're not qualified. But if you could find them and get that dialed in, they're like, boom, I would love to be finding you and signing up. And where have you been all my life?
Yeah.
It was just not the right offer. Like you said, maybe there was something off and they just self-selected that, oh, this isn't for me. And you adjust that and boom, you've opened up a gateway for them. You know?
And the tools that I use tap into actual market data. So for example, I was able to tell a contractor that I was working with that he is at the absolute top of the market in terms of his pricing for one of the services that he offers.
Right.
Okay. And he said, yeah, I've been losing a lot lately because right now there's a little more price sensitivity in market. And he's like, you know, I was thinking about this thing and my accountant was talking about price elasticity. And I'm like, time out. That's an accounting term. Let's get rid of it. But what ended up happening is we went in and we added some of the data about his certifications, his experience and expertise, and his methodology and his materials that then had his clients coming back to him and paying the higher price. Because think of it this way. If I told you I sell cars and you sell cars, we sound like we're selling the same thing, but we're not. Okay. Right. He was selling the luxury vehicle. They were selling the Hyundai.
Yes.
Right. But the market didn't understand that because he was talking beyond the market's comprehension. So it left them to the price. So again, there's a whole lot of places where I look for friction. I mean, full disclosure, I hate having arguments in my personal life. You know why? I deal with a lot of friction every day. I don't need more.
I don't want more there, you know? Yes, absolutely. So I love that you're coming in a place of helping reduce that friction. You want to help companies succeed. That's why I had you on the podcast, Ellen. I know we're getting to the end of the podcast here, but you know, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my goodness, Ellen's hitting this, please connect. We're going to put all in the show notes how you can connect with Ellen. We're connected on LinkedIn, her website, and resources. So we want you to reach out there and also put comments here so that she can respond back wherever you're finding us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever that is. Now, and if you guys are like, oh my goodness, this is so good, share with your colleagues as well, because they're going to benefit. Your other team leaders of like, man, we need to bring together Ellen in an organization, and Ellen and I be your superpowers. We'll come together and work together and help with leadership as well with Steward Your Business. But Ellen, as we're wrapping up the conversation today, what would we covered a lot, but what would you encourage, whether you're the business owner or you're a leader, you're responsible for, growing and developing within the company, service line, or whatever the case might be in that, what would you encourage them to do, assess, look at themselves, to say, are we looking at these things effectively? Or maybe I'm not. What would you do to, and then, encourage them to take action today?
I would encourage them to sit very quietly on a day when they're not being pulled in 75 different directions and ask themselves, do I know for sure that I'm talking to the right people, that I'm offering them the right products and services, the ones that they want, the ones that they value, the ones I can make the best profit on. And again, I'm not a profit first person, but if it's a win for them and a win for you, no harm, no foul, right?
Right.
Am I putting things out there? Am I discounting my price when I shouldn't be? Is my sales team being encouraged
Mm-hmm.
to offer deals? I mean, I hate when people say everybody loves a bargain. No, well, yeah, they do, but you shouldn't give it away.
Yeah.
Okay. So literally just sit back and think about what it is that you're doing. Are you certain you're talking to the right people, giving them the right solutions to their pain points, charging them the right amount, giving them an opportunity to try out what your solution might look like at a basically risk-free level
Yeah.
without losing money? Okay. And if you're not sure, hit me up for a complimentary consultation. I actually am launching within a week. It will be up there. It is a revenue friction diagnostic that looks at each of the 4 pillars that I talked about today.
Mm-hmm.
It's a self-assessment. You go through on a scale of 1 to 5, from strongly disagree at 1 to strongly agree at 5. And it will tell you not only whether or not you likely have friction in your business, it'll also tell you by pillar whether that's the pillar where your friction
Awesome.
exists.
That's awesome,
And
Ellen. But
just as
by the time we get this podcast out there, we'll have that. We'll put that in our show notes.
and just as an invitation to your client, your clients, your audience that are
Yes.
watching this, if this was helpful and the only comment that you care to leave is, hey, thanks so much, you helped me figure out what was wrong, I'm going to be applauding that comment.
Yes, me too. Me too, Ellen. It's a real pleasure to have you here, Ellen, on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your resources, your insights. I hope everybody listening really got something out of this today. If you did, please, of course, like and subscribe and follow along and all of those good things. We truly appreciate it because we really want to help you, the business owner, the leader, be more effective leading yourself, leading your organizations, and being more effective in the world in the time that we have here. So, Ellen, thank you so much.
And thank you, David, for having me on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Until next time, everybody, be well, take good care, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody, for listening.